What? What's that you say?
Let's see what's cooking. It's time for Yo-Yo Max 12.
Hello everyone. I'm going to make the filling here. Now you use whatever filling you want for these. I'm using a pound of Italian sausage, a pound of ground beef, about a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon or two of granulated garlic, some onion powder, some Italian seasonings, and some plain black pepper. And then I'm just mixing it up together. Now for the actual pasta part, use whatever recipe you want. I'm using the one that's on the KitchenAid website for the pasta that you use. And basically all pasta is flour, salt, and egg yolks. That's all it is. So I put that in a bowl and I beat it until it started to come together. And then I switched to a dough hook for a little while. And you'll end up with a dough that's very stiff and a little bit on the dry side. Now when you work with this kind of dough a lot, you get a good feel for it. And I did add several drops of water to mine just to get it to the right texture that I wanted it. Now what's important with this dough is that you let it rest. So after you knead it a little bit into a ball, then you're going to put it in I put mine in a plastic bag, and you're just going to let it sit for about 30 minutes. And the gluten will start to develop in it a little bit and it'll be easier to work with. And then I have a pasta attachment for my KitchenAid mixer, which makes making pasta so easy. And then I just kept rolling it through the different thicknesses until I ended up with something that if I put my hand behind it, you could almost see my hand through it. You want it fairly thin. This makes a lot of pasta, this recipe. Then I use an egg-shaped cookie cutter to cut out the pieces for the ears. Now you have to remember when you're working with this kind of pasta, make sure you take your pieces that you're not using and cover them with a damp cloth or a damp paper towel to keep them from drying out, because it dries very quickly. Then I put that meat mixture filling in a Ziploc bag and I just squeezed out little portions onto each egg-shaped piece of pasta. Just a little bit. Now I brushed on a little egg white along the edges of these. I ended up using some of the egg white that I had when I separated the eggs to make the pasta. And then you just add a top piece and you're going to press all the way around to seal it. And make sure you press out any air that might be in there, because if you put these in boiling water, if there's air in there, it might cause them to open up while they're boiling. And then you need to shape them into an ear shape. And this is when you can be as creative as you want and use your artistic ability. And for sculpting, I basically went around the edge and just curled up the edge to make the edge of the ear. I folded one piece inward, pinched it and folded it in to make the inside part of the ear, and then kind of flattened to where the earlobe would be. And of course you can make these any size that you'd like. And the more I made of these, kind of the better I got at it. So here's another one. I found out it was easier to go around and fold the edges first to get the edge of that ear, the outside edge of the ear, and then on the inside of the ear, I kind of put a little tiny bit of egg white there, and then I just folded it inward and pinched. And then I flattened that earlobe out a little bit. And then you set these aside. I dusted them with a little bit of flour until I was ready to cook them. And there we are, the cooking. That is a large pot of salted boiling water. And when the water's boiling, you can put them in. And I'm going to show you here that I actually made some little rat-shaped ones, and I made some tadpole-shaped ones as well. You're going to cook these for about 10 minutes or so until they start to float up like this, and you cook them long enough so that the filling inside is cooked properly as well. And then you drain them. Oh, and of course I also tried some eel-shaped ones just to see how they would turn out. And for the rest, I did a bunch of just regular raviolis, the round ones. And then you take your ears and you could serve them this way on some pasta sauce, or you can toss them in some pasta sauce, however you want to do it. And you can see here, there's some ears, and I also have a couple of those rats. I'll show you some close-ups here. Here's kind of like a headless rat. These ones didn't turn out quite as good as I wanted. You could experiment and do all sorts of kinds of different shapes. I kind of like the tadpole ones. They look like a little tadpole that's growing arms. That's kind of creepy. And here are some of the eels, or the snakes, or whatever you want to call them, that I also made. These ones I wasn't too thrilled with either. So here is what they look like when they're tossed in the pasta sauce, and they look quite gory and vaguely ear-shaped. I'm not sure if you showed these to somebody, if they would say, hey, that looks like an ear. I'm not sure. What do you think? They tasted good, though. It's a nice filling. Here's a playlist of some of the other savory Halloween dishes that I've done on my channel. Lots of creepy, fun things to make here. Go ahead and click right on your screen. And thank you so much for watching.